All right, welcome to Accounting Insiders. I am Gary DeHart, publisher of Insightful Accountant, and today we've got Liz Mason from like 9 firm names.
High Rock Accounting
High
is the
Rock
main
Accounting,
firm.
yes.
Rebel Rock Accounting, yeah, the tax department. I think that's pretty much it right now.
Okay, so that's 3,
Yeah,
not 9. I exaggerated.
yeah, those are the
Pardon
accounting
my
firms.
exaggeration.
I mean, there's a few tech companies, but
Who's counting? So maybe 9
You.
wasn't too far off. Maybe 9 wasn't too far off. So I did say I'm not checking text here. I'm looking at what we said we were going to talk about.
I'm okay if you're
So,
texting people.
That's
while we're
right.
talking. It's fine.
I can't do that.
I'm a
That's-
millennial, so
I'm not, so I
this
can't.
is acceptable social behavior.
It's not possible for me to do that. So you're Liz Mason. We just said that. What do you do?
It depends on the day, really.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I am a CEO and founder, so most of the time I'm setting really weird ideas in other people's hands and then giving them the support and encouragement to execute on them.
Okay.
That's generally my day to day.
And that actually, and so you're staffed well enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, so I do believe in like the visionary integrator magic that happens when you have somebody who has all the crazy disruptive ideas, and then you have somebody that's like an extreme organized, but like executioner is not the right word, but like ability to execute on things. I jokingly call her my executioner.
You're my executioner.
And that's Melissa Diaz, and she is phenomenal. And so I come to the table with all these ideas, and I'm like, okay, so what if we do this crazy thing? Like the other day, like what if we just get rid of titles? We have no more titles, and people get compensated for the value they bring to the firm, and they get responsibilities based on what they're actually good at. And she's like, okay, like how do we actually take this idea, make it possible in this, society, and communicate that to our team, and also figure out, the details behind how you compensate and measure somebody for the value they bring to the team. Because nobody's done it before, so.
And do this in a day and a half. How long does she have to figure that out?
No, we're doing this through the end of the year.
Okay.
And this is like, we're in the feasibility stage, so
Sure.
we don't even know if that's gonna work, but that's the idea.
Seems to make sense to me, right? But tracking it, right? How do you? It seems I always get it confused, objective and subjective, but it's very subjective, right?
Yes, it can be quite subjective unless you figure out very objective measures on value.
Right.
Which of course is the problem that we'll figure out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, because some things still have to be done, but they may not have a high perceived value.
Exactly.
But if it doesn't get done, if you don't put gas in the car's not going to run.
Right. And then also, do you compensate on the value of the specific tasks humans are performing inside of the organization or what they're capable of performing?
Mm-hmm.
And where do you divide that line?
Right. Well, we'll have to talk again in 3 or 4 months and see how it went.
Right. I'll let you know.
See if she 2 weeks in, she's like, you've lost your mind. We're not doing this.
Well, she hasn't said no yet. And most of the time, if there's a hard stop, it happens pretty quick.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So that works well.
Yeah.
Like, what's the craziest thing that you have gone to her and said, we need to do this, and she said, that is crazy, we're not doing that. Has that happened yet?
No, actually, it hasn't happened where there's been like a full hard stop on an idea that was like a good crazy idea. I mean, there's been like some really terrible ideas that I've come up with, but mostly the ones that have to do with the firm and not starting a new business to do a thing. Like I had a really terrible idea for the terrible client firm. So basically you create a firm and then you take all the terrible clients from everyone else, but you have a they pay you to take their terrible clients. You make their offboarding of the other firm and the onboarding onto your firm amazing. You give them the best quality service, you take care of them, handhold them, make it incredible. And then you pass it off to a call center in the Bronx. And you just have people yell at them on the phone and hang up on them and refuse to answer their emails. And eventually they leave, right?
Yes.
But you build into your contract that there's they have to pay you for 6 months after they leave. And so I'm just saying it's a very lucrative model.
I like it. They get rid of their bad clients.
Yeah.
And their life is much better.
Right. So Melissa did shut that one down. She's like, I don't want to run a firm that was built for terrible clients.
Yeah, I want to run the hate firm.
Terrible, in fact.
That's really funny.
Yeah, but so there's been a few other ideas that have gotten shut down,
But key to that, and we were talking earlier in practice management, it's kind of that's your passion, right? And But that's part of practice management, right? Is the team, the tools, the technology, but structuring your firm so that she can say to you, I'm willing to try it, however,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's critical. So let's go to a little bit deeper on the practice management
Yeah.
side. What's trending, if that's even right, the stuff in accounting trend, but what's trending in practice management? What are you seeing? Or we'll say, what are you seeing in practice management? Then what's the biggest gap right now
Yeah.
that the vendors need to solve?
So there are lots of good programs handling different pieces of practice management. And so the issues we're trying to solve is having like an end-to-end integrated practice management system that gives us the data we need at each point in the process, right?
Okay.
And so there are, tools that are handling the project management and the client management. There are tools that are handling engagement letters and payments. There are tools that are handling the marketing feed and the CRM, like into the sales funnel. The problem is from the perspective of an accounting firm, there are not truly, fully, holistically customized end-to-end client management systems. And so when I mean end-to-end, I mean from the first interaction they have on the marketing side, through the sales pipeline, through to engagement letters, getting payments built in, and then pushing that over automatically into project management, and then handling the recurring nature of whatever was scoped in that project. And then if they do offboard, right? And then of course, like all of because it's a circle when you think about it, right? And you're continuously marketing to your current clients with newsletters and other information, but making sure that all of that is updated. And then the biggest piece of that is the data around it, right? And so like you can solve any piece of that independently with apps. You can string a bunch of them together and kind of duct tape your way into an end-to-end system, but you don't get the data points that you need, right?
Because there's some here, there's some there,
Yeah.
there's some over here.
Right. Or understanding the efficacy of your team. Like, how are they performing on this project, right? And what does that look like when you actually rope that into the scope that you had? And what's the trend of that? Is it like there's always a quarterly jump in time it takes them to perform those tasks? Is it always, like continuously growing the time it takes to do that? And it's not just about time, but when you start looking at like the number of people assigned, or when the team starts roping in CFOs, or when there's like extra task lists that are client tasks that haven't been completed, but all of the data surrounding the performance of the practice is kind of piecemealed right now. And trying to get to the point where we can have, kind of a snapshot of, okay, this is everything. This is the pipeline. This is the likelihood of these closing based on all of these characteristics we've learned from before. This is, capacity on this specific industry team, and really understand like how projects are going, how we're serving our clients, and then rope in things like client surveys. How do they feel we're doing?
Right.
Because that's a factor that needs to be related too.
Then what do you guys use?
So we've moved the majority of, all of our marketing and sales is on Microsoft Dynamics. Our proposals are integrated through Dynamics into PandaDoc. And we're working right now on an automation to move after that's signed into our project management system. Currently, we're using Active Collab, which we've integrated from a Teams perspective. So that shows up right in Microsoft Teams with all the projects and tasks people have. But we're thinking about, is there a different project module that is already either built into Dynamics, integrated with Dynamics, that would allow for that piece of it to happen? So, like, holistically, we've gotten probably 50% of the way there on our integration.
And who does that? You have somebody on your team
Yeah.
that does that?
Yep.
Or is that your passion? You're like, I just got to get write some code.
No, my code is horribly inefficiently written. I can totally do it, but it's like a real coder looks at it and goes, why? Like, your logic makes no sense. So we do have a team. We have a tech team. Our director of technology is Jay Kimmelman. He joined our team earlier this year.
Yeah, I was actually talking to him earlier.
Yeah.
And that's so funny, because he said, oh, I'm doing all the technology, and then when we're sitting here talking, that just didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah.
That, and I knew he was doing it for you, but
Yep.
yeah, so Jay.
Yeah, Jay's fantastic. And he, that's always been his passion.
Right.
Like, he's good at client work. That's not his passion. His passion is the tech side
Yeah.
and how to utilize the tech in the best, most meaningful way to serve the industry. And so he's been in charge of that project and doing an exceptional job. And then we have a team under him as well. So we have people that handle tech on our team. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, having people that you can assign things to or bring around the table and kick ideas off of, right? I mean, you can do a lot more when you have people.
Oh yeah. Well, and luckily we have a brand that attracts like innovative thinkers and people that want to do things differently, and so they're not coming at it from a this is how it's been done before and I'm just going to repeat that process. They're coming at it from a okay, so here's the current process, here's how we can make it better, and here's how we can implement technology and throw that process out the door and create something totally new.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part for us, to be able to take a step back and be like, okay, well, why is this here? Like, is this step lucrative, like, for any other reason, or is it just because somebody at some point replicated a paper-based process and now we do it using technology in the same way? Why, right? But we have a whole team asking those questions.
That's fantastic.
It's fun.
And now, when you get that built out, is that something that you would turn around and then sell to other firms? Or
We could.
Would that be part of the model?
Yeah, so we've talked about doing that, and it really, like, honestly, there's two pieces of that matter. One being how it goes over the next year, maybe two, with our firm, making sure that we're building all of the needed modules, making sure it's all integrated and flowing right. And then the second piece of that is, do we want to build a sales team?
Right.
And do we want to have
You
customer
gotta
service?
service it.
Right. So that'll be a question for the future.
Right.
And that'll be generally an opportunity cost question, right?
Yeah.
Should we invest our money in starting a new industry team and doing accounting services? Should we invest our money in building out a software sales channel?
Right.
And that the future may tell us.
Not soon enough, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know you've got a session to run too. I didn't mention we are at Xerocon
Yeah.
in New Orleans, Xerocon 2022. What is today? I don't even know. It's Wednesday
The 24th of
of
August.
August. I was going to say July. I'm like, I know it's not July. So it's August.
No, it's August in New
Yes.
Orleans, so it's,
Or, yeah,
it's a little wet.
nice and cool. It's not hot and it's not humid at all.
Not humid.
No,
And
not here.
don't look at the hair.
My hair frizz this morning, so let's talk about two more things. One, high level on the overall tech stack, right? We just talked about kind of practice management. What's in your stack? And then tell us about your what you were telling me prior, just about Inc. 5000.
Yeah, so our tech stack really depends on the industry team that is servicing.
And sorry to interrupt you here. It's industry team being the industry that you're serving.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
Our structure is that we have people dive really deep in the industry they're serving.
Okay.
So we have 4 teams right now. We have a technology, which is SaaS biotech team. We have a nonprofit team. We have an econ team. And then we have a services team.
Okay.
And those teams really focus very heavily on what they're doing. Oh, and of course we have our Rebel Rock team, which is cannabis.
Yep.
It's just, that is technically a separate brand, but it's pretty integrated in the way that we do it. But we do a ton of cannabis work, so I can't forget them. But anyways, so they dive deep into the industry that they're serving, and sometimes one tool or another is better for that industry from an operational perspective. And so, the core of our teams, the majority of them use Xero, and then Gusto generally is our go-to for payroll. Depending on the types of payments they take, we work with pretty much all the payment processors, right? So we work with Stripe, we work with Go Cardless, we work with Payrix, and then, PayPal is the old standby. And then, from there, it depends on like what you're talking about. So with our tech startups, a lot of them are scaling very quickly and they need dimensionality. And so we use Sage Impact. with them, because we're saying, okay, so if they're, raising $3 million now, $10 million in 2 years, if they're going to go from like no customers to thousands of customers, we need to be able to handle that volume of transaction. And so we'll implement early and get them ready for scale, which is, it just makes sense. And then generally with those, we're integrating Bill.com, which we still use on some of our other clients, although we also use Veeam, and we use Melio and a few other payment processors. And then we have QBO that we use on a few other teams, like our nonprofit team predominantly uses QBO. From the tags and the tracking. It makes it a little easier to do the complications needed from a reporting perspective for nonprofits. And then I know there's like a few grant management systems that they use on that side. But yeah, so it's, we try to focus on using cool tools, but then we also build our own API connectors if we have to. So if we have a client and they're using some operational tool that has accounting information we need and it has an API, generally we have a subset of contractors we use for development, and we'll call them up and say, hey, what's it going to cost to build this API connector so we don't have to dump reports out of here? So we do quite a bit of that. And on the cannabis side, we use Xero because they're supportive of the cannabis industry, whereas some of the other tools are not.
Actually, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, we've seen some accounts shut down on QBO for cannabis companies, just hardcore data shutdown. We also recommend if anyone is using QBO on that side to do backups on a regular basis.
Right.
Yeah. Or use one of the apps that does that for you regularly. I think they do it daily or hourly in some cases. And then also on cannabis payments is like one of the bigger issues because you can't use a payment processor, so it's pretty much all cash.
Yeah, I think you had told me that maybe 2 years ago. I didn't realize that. I think you had told me that. Like, I understand. Well, let's say I understand the why. Yeah. I don't really understand the why, but I get it.
Yeah.
But that's insane.
Yes, it's absolutely insane. So of course, like we've been working on a cash, like a cash tool, basically, to be a cash log, like a digital cash log, because most people are just writing it in a journal right now, which is insane. But if you really think about it, some of them are using Google Sheets, like things that are just not secure enough or like stable enough, right? Because in Google Sheets, like anyone can go change it,
right? And
then you have like giant reconciliation discrepancies. And so we've been building like a little app to handle just cash log and then download that into Xero directly. Yeah. So like there's a few small tools like that we build out just for fun.
Okay. Just for fun.
I mean, like...
Now, will Jay be working on that? Is that something he'll...
Yeah, so Jay helps advise. Yeah, so we're also working on a tax tool. We're just doing tax OCR and just making it super slick and build out work papers just because it's... I mean, the softwares that exist, unfortunately, they haven't updated their OCR in a while. Okay. And they're just the rate that they're correct is not high enough for us. Okay. So...
Needs to be correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important.
Exactly.
So, all right, before we wrap up, Inc. 5000 list, talk to me.
Hyrock made the Inc. 5000 list. It was announced 2 weeks ago.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Over 3 years, we had over 300% growth. So it was,
Is it 300 per year or 300
over the
3 year span?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was over 300%. So it's over 100% each year.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you think is the primary driver of that growth? And maybe there's more than one. Maybe it's not just primary.
So I think honestly, there's work everywhere, right? Like, and there's no shortage of accounting work that needs to get done. Mm-hmm. And the approach that we take integrating technology, the fact that we have a tech team that comes in and streamlines processes and helps companies really figure out what the best tools are for them to use. And then knowing that we have the capability to build any kind of custom integration that might need to be built to really make data more available in real time. I think that gives us, it still gives us a competitive advantage, even though there's a ton of firms doing very similar to what we do. Right. They don't take the same approach and they don't have the same methodology. And so we get a ton of referrals just in general, and we go deep in the industries we're in. And so like the cannabis industry exploded as we're, and we're pretty early adopters, so to speak, in that field. And so there aren't many people like Rebel Rock that can say, like, we have the depth of knowledge in your field.
Right.
We've been through fundraisers, we've been through licensure, like we totally understand everything from, grow operations through processing into dispensaries. We know what the flow of products should be. We understand the controls that need to happen. And there's just not that many people that are coming to the table with that level of expertise. And then, the other industries, like we have Megan Tarnow on our team, who's like an incredible nonprofit accountant and very, very vocal in both the, industry, like in the accounting industry, and then
Right.
also just in the nonprofit world. And, we have Jay, who's phenomenal on the e-com side, right? And the accounting side. And so we just have gotten a bunch of really cool, really talented humans on our team, and that's driven growth.
That's great. So niche, provide great service, the right tools. Naturally, and the more you build those tools, right, kind of the stickier the
Yeah.
client's going to be too, because it's going to be really hard. As long as you're not doing a terrible job, it's going to be really hard for them to leave. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and we've had clients leave,
Sure.
right? And most of clients we've had leave have been where they wanted to work with, like me or Melissa, right? Because when we started the firm, we, did their work for years, and as we scaled, we can't do direct client work on a daily basis. And so most of the clients left because they just wanted us to do their work, but they were unwilling to pay for that,
Right.
and they didn't trust our team.
How
And
about your
that's
startup
hard.
rates?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, and it's fun to be able to hand a project back and say, hey, when you gave it to us, this was a 2-week-a-month job, and now it's a 2-day-a-month job. You're
Right.
welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. I know you've got a session to run too.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
It's good to see you again.
It's really good to
I'm trying
see
to think,
you.
when did I see you last? Was it Scaling New Heights? Were you there?
I was not. Were you at Accounting Web?
No, must have been Engage.
Yep.
Yes,
There you go.
we got Engage. That's what it was. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll get this posted shortly.
Awesome.
All right.